Great. Thank you all for being here tonight at Startup Grind Fort Lauderdale, our third event at the Broward College Innovation Hub. We're really excited to have Gregory Sokornik here with us tonight. Gregory was founded and led the Extreme Network, which was sold for $75 million in Europe. And this was a pioneer for free internet access in Europe, and he'll tell us some about that. And his latest project is Good World Games. Well, he founded and led several and sold several other internet companies, which he can also tell us about. But his most recent project right now is Good World Games, which is a pioneer in gaming for good. And they, the in-app purchases or advertising that you see helps to give back to charities that are related to the game itself. And I downloaded one last night, and it was pretty fun and addictive. So I'm really excited to hear from him tonight. So welcome, Gregory.
This is on? Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for the wonderful applause. You made me sound much grander than I actually am, but thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you are. So maybe you can start off by telling everyone a little bit about a boot, where you're from, and
Thank you.
And how you got interested in entrepreneurship.
Are there any Canadians here tonight? No? Yay! Woo! Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to say out, okay? I just said it. I'm from Toronto, Canada, but I've been down in Florida for about the past 9 years. I've been building startups in technology, mostly in digital media, for about the past 15, 16 years. It's what I love to do. It excites me. I'm a reformed lawyer, so very briefly, many years ago, I practiced corporate law, but it didn't engage me enough, and even though it can be a very exciting profession, it wasn't my thing, and I got the bug. I decided starting companies was my thing, and back in '97. With my brother, we started a company, as you mentioned, called the Extreme Network. That's X-STREM. Very cool spelling for the day. And we pioneered free internet access in Europe. It was the dot-com era. Some of you who may remember that time. It was very exciting. You know, we launched it initially in Toronto. We started the company in Toronto. But we discovered pretty quickly that it wasn't the ideal environment to actually build the business. North America wasn't. So we partnered with some people in the UK initially, and we launched the Extreme in London. This was in 1998, early 1998. And our model was a little bit different than the AOLs of the world. You know, we were an internet service provider, but we came to the market with a compelling product, which was free internet access. Everyone loves free. It was an ad-based platform, so we served ads to people. People hate ads, but we did it anyway, and they were happy to have things. They love free things more than they hate ads. So initially, it started as an ad-supported model. Later, we actually started to generate a lot of revenue off of telco. So that was sharing revenue with the local telephone companies. Became kind of our main revenue stream. And the reason we launched it in Europe as opposed to North America is to do with the model. And I won't bore you with too many of the details there, but quite simply because you pay for local calls in most parts of Europe, even today, we were taking one of the cost centers away from internet access by users. So people didn't have to pay for both. I have to backtrack, actually. This was in the days of dial-up. We forgot about this. Does anyone remember dial-up internet access? Okay, good. So, there we go. Net zero, right, exactly. So it was very similar to net zero. So net zero was in the U.S. Primarily. We chose not to be in the U.S. because of for the reason that net zero faced some difficulties, right? It became very expensive. They were, losing money for the most part. We were very unfashionable back then because we were one of the few internet companies that was actually cash flow positive. We were making money. It wasn't. It was a double-edged sword. It wasn't necessarily a great thing from a valuation standpoint, because as soon as you're making money, you get valued on your earnings. So that wasn't very popular back in the late 90s.
And you mentioned to me before that the reason you focused in Europe is because local calls, people were accustomed to paying for local calls versus in the U.S. where it was free, so that wasn't an option for revenue.
Exactly. So effectively it's free here, right? Or there's bundled packages, but there you pay per minute for the local call. So imagine if you're spending, 10 cents a minute to dial into the internet, and then you're also spending 10 or 20 bucks or pounds per month for the internet access. It gets a bit expensive. So we came along and we said, and we did away with the cost of the internet access. People still had to pay for the dial-up to dial in to our servers, but that was very attractive. So the company took off. In 11 months. We became the third biggest ISP in the UK. We were even briefly bigger than AOL in the UK, which was exciting. I think the most exciting part, if you want me to go into the launch time frame, was we had committed to launch on March 8th, 1998. I don't remember why we committed to do that, but we had a date in mind, and so we set our minds on it. And we were, a scrum of developers and business guys in this small, crappy little office in Clapham in London. No air conditioning, although it was March, so it wasn't terrible.
London, too.
And it was London. At 11 o'clock at night on March 8th, we launched, we flipped the switch, we turned on the service. And we hadn't eaten dinner. We left for about 2 hours to go have dinner. And we were able to see the tally of users. When we came back at like 2 in the morning, we had 1,000 subscribers already. So it was super exciting. We were young guys, and that was the beginning. And then we just spent most of our time watching the user count. And
so what was it like? So you and your brother were co-founders, and
right.
Your brother is the technical side, and you're the business side. And how was that working together with a close family member like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, my brother and I did launch it. He's a smart guy, very technically savvy, computer science. His story is fun because he did drop out of university. He didn't finish his college degree, so that's an accolade.
They pay you to do that.
They pay you to do that now, and that's an accolade, right? I was more business. I was running the company as CEO, and he was CTO, and we built a team. We actually kept all of our software development in Toronto. So we had our whole software team in Toronto, and Toronto is a very good tech scene, a little bit of a hidden gem, or it used to be anyway. So we kept it there, even though all our business operations were in Europe. And so I ran the business out of London. It worked really well. We're pretty compatible that way. We complement each other, and we grew. To 1 million subscribers. We were in 5 countries by the time I sold it. So we were in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands in 2 years. So that was March 98 to March 2000. And so it worked very well. He was mostly in Toronto and I was in the UK, so there was no risk of us fighting too much. That was good.
And how did you know it was time to sell? Was that the first offer you got and you said, wow, 75 million in 2 years?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Probably was. That's a good question, and I'm not sure I even remember the answer to that, except that we were on the verge of going public. We were going to do an IPO in the U.S. on the NASDAQ, and I don't know if people remember. I'm sure they do, but March early 2000 was a very fragile time, even before that. But obviously in the markets and NASDAQ, and things started to get very rough. We were on our way to going public, and then we had another company, France's biggest ISP at the time, come along and buy us. So I think, we as a management team determined that the timing was good. We saw that there was a lot of competition entering the market. It was going to get rough. And we had built a pretty decent company in a short time frame. We thought, we had accomplished what we wanted to at that time. The market changed after that too. Free internet access went away. Companies eventually like Net Zero went away, but years later. And I think we saw a little bit of the writing on the wall, and the time was right, and we got an offer that was attractive, that pleased us. So,
what do you think led to free internet access going away? What were the causes, and how could you see it early on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Things like broadband. Again, we were still all dial-up, except we're starting with ISDN at the time when we sold it. But broadband came along. It was no longer a sustainable model, right? At one point or another, the big incumbents were going to have to charge, right, for internet. You had to pay for fast internet access. Maybe it's gotten a little out of control today, but it was no longer a sustainable model. That was obvious. At the time of dial-up, it made a little bit more sense, but by the time 2000 rolled around, it was the business model just didn't work.
You would never find the advertisers to support the cost to have the internet?
I think it was a combination of things, and I think users were not thrilled with interrupted user experience or internet access. We had ads running atop the browser every time you surfed the internet. Obviously people put up with it, but they wanted faster speeds. Having ads interrupt your user experience wasn't very attractive anymore. So
it makes sense.
It makes sense.
So after that, did you and your brother go on to start another company together, or did you just part ways? Or how did you figure out the next step? You've cashed out of this company that was your life for 2 years, and then where do you go next from there?
Yeah, it's a hard call, right, when you're at that point. The thing is that myself, like my brother, we're real startup mindsets, right? We like the early stages of companies, right? I still do. I still get a thrill out of building company. That's the phase I enjoy most, really. And the company that bought us, Liberty Surf, was growing in leaps and bounds very fast. They were in, probably 15 countries by mid 2000, and they were public. We merged with them. The company went public on Paris the day after we merged with them, and they were growing. They were buying companies left and right, and it became a large company, and that it didn't really suit us. That's not what I excited us. So my brother, I knew he was gone the moment we signed the deal. Me, I stayed on a little longer, for about another 6 or 8 months. And I ran the Northern Europe operations for Extreme, which then became Liberty Surf at that point. We didn't go into business together after that. I think he did some traveling, I can't remember, but then he was chomping at the bit to start another company. We eventually moved to the US, and I was doing more. I was sitting on boards and advisory boards of startups mostly. Mostly tech companies, digital media companies, and then eventually YouTube came along. So this is fast forwarding several years, and that's what launched me into my next business, which had nothing to do with internet access. So I've sort of swerved through the startup world into different spaces, So I really was starting to get into digital media at that point. And I think I was telling you that I started a company called Project Breakout, which my brother was involved in that. But it was a cool idea that probably like a lot of startups, was ahead of its time, or it was too early, or was, the timing was wrong. And it was what I called a mixture between American Idol and YouTube across multiple different categories. So it was a video competition network that we built. And we had competitions in film, music, comedy, modeling, broadcasting, and people would upload their videos to compete for these amazing opportunities, these great prizes. Career altering prizes, right? The intern on the set of a movie with an Oscar-winning film producer, opportunity to perform on stage at one of the biggest comedy clubs in New York. So we were offering these great opportunities. It was a great, I still love the concept, but it became a big production, right? And it was difficult to scale. Opportunities were a bit challenging to always have at the ready, or make them very compelling for the audience. But we had pretty big participation, and the costs of operating Project Breakout became pretty significant too.
So what would you do if you could do it over again to make Project Breakout work? Was there a key assumption that was wrong in the beginning, or was it something that couldn't have been foreseen? How can you protect yourself from something like that happening again? Or what advice would you give to other people that are starting their companies to make sure, it might sound like an amazing idea, but it just isn't financially feasible for some reason? How can you
get your hands on a check for $100 million? Start with that. That's a good place to start. I would say, really, with something like that, a business like that, you need to have the partnerships well in place. You need to have them set up. It's difficult with a company. Some types of businesses, and that would be one of them, really need that as a fundamental anchor of the business. Really solid partnerships. We should have had them in all the categories to begin with, as opposed to launching into it and then trying to scramble to figure out partnerships on the way. We did manage to do it. Actually, it was pretty impressive, but it really was a pipeline of partnership opportunities that we needed to have that would have also made it scalable, right? So we didn't have to be so involved in producing what became events. They were all individual events, effectively. Mm-hmm. So the advice, or I guess the lesson I learned from that is, do think carefully about there's my about. Do think carefully about the sort of the state of the world, the state of technology at the time when you're launching a company. It's not easy, to know if your timing is right. It's never easy, but so you're always, you're using your best guesses, your skills, your expertise, what you've experienced. But I would say, look at the state of technology. In that case, I think technology wasn't where the business model was, and so I would say today, it's something that could be more feasible, actually, that model. And who knows, maybe I'll get back to it at one point. We'll see. What
specifically is different now than back then, technology-wise? The quality of the videos, the ease of uploading, or? Yeah, well, certainly the bandwidth costs have changed dramatically, right? It's, with cloud services today, the effective cost of serving and hosting videos, while still not entirely insignificant, have dropped dramatically compared to then. Then at that point, it was a big cost center for us. Mm-hmm. So that's changed. We see it with some of our, I'm in gaming now, and again, that wasn't something that was a given for me because I wasn't a hardcore gamer. But we've launched games that have involved video, a charades game, for instance, right? So we've had to host and serve charades videos into an app on a phone. And he told me about this before. So this app is where celebrities act out the charades, and you watch it on your phone, and you have to try to guess. Like, the faster you guess it, the better, right?
Yeah, that's the essence of it. So it's based on the classic charades game, acting and guessing. It's video based. It's being reinvented. We're kind of reworking the app, but we had launched a game. It was called Charades for Good. And For Good was sort of our moniker because our company is about gaming for good. We partner with charities. But when we first launched that game, we did get some well-known actors and actresses on board to create charades for us. We went out to the Oscars. We had 20 well-known actors produce about 100 or 150 videos for us, and it was all for charity. And we uploaded them into the app. But then it was a game for everybody to play, right? So it was an app you'd install from the App Store, from Google Play and the Apple App Store. And you could choose a word to act out from amongst many different categories. You sent it to your friends, one of your Facebook friends. Similar to a draw something or words with friends, it's scrambled letters. You were given hints. You could buy hints. You could buy time. We've rethought it, and we're planning to come out with a new version of the game. But it was great because we had celebrities behind it. It was about gaming for good. People were motivated to have fun while doing good.
And was it? It all supported the same charity, regardless of the theme, or did the charity varied based on, I don't know, whether you're acting out a movie or a song or something, or how did it work?
Yeah, so just a quick bit about Good World Games.
Yeah.
The model is gaming for good. So we make games that are fun. Well, we think they're fun. We hope they're entertaining.
They are fun. I got addicted to water flow.
Yeah. Check out water flow in the App Store. Actually, go to our website because it's easier to install it from the website. But it's gaming for good. We partner with charities to raise awareness for causes in our games. The games are not necessarily about the cause in any way. We also share revenue from in-app purchases or in-game ads with the charity partners. But the games can touch on maybe a theme of the cause that the charity is working on. So we like there to be a light connection between the game and the cause, but we also don't want to be too heavy-handed. We don't want to be too preachy. We don't want the games to be, not that educational is a bad thing, but we don't want them to be overtly educational. So we partner one-on-one with charities. So it's usually one charity for one game. Water Flow is with a great charity called Give to Colombia, which has a lot of amazing initiatives going on across Colombia, spreading into Latin America as well. The game is a water game, hence the name. Oh, it's a water puzzle game. I think it's a really good game, and it supports the water initiatives, the award-winning water initiatives of Give to Colombia. So we're sharing 50% of revenue from that game with the cause. Now our model is entirely one-on-one with charities, but we had experimented with allowing users to pick the cause or the charity. We did that with an organization called CrowdRise. And again, these are lessons you learn because we experimented with. We keep experimenting. We're constantly doing these mini pivots in our model, and you have to. We allowed users to pick from all the causes that are listed on the CrowdRise site, which number, I don't know, 1.6 million or something like that. So we did this for our charades game. So you'd log in, you'd do a keyword search for a cause that is important to you. It could be the Humane Society, it could be, a children's organization, whatever it might be, and you play for that cause in the game at that time. And then you were able to come back and change the cause the next day. And we'd share revenue with that cause. We found it became cumbersome, and I think we also discovered that in large part people do, they don't want to have to put in too much effort in choosing a cause. They prefer to have their hand held a little bit when choosing a cause. And it ties back with part of the reason I started Good World Games, which was really wanting to do something where giving or supporting awareness, raising awareness for causes was a part of my everyday. Something I did every day as opposed to an afterthought. Mm-hmm. I found gaming to be a super exciting platform around which to do that. Even though I had no experience in gaming, but it was explosive. It remains an explosive industry. And we've tried to sort of marry these worlds of giving and gaming. And a little bit is also to offer charities a more interesting or engaging way to raise money for causes. And maybe we can have a little bit of an impact on down the road on how charities engage with their users, engage with their supporters, find new supporters, and raise money. That was part of the goal, part of the intention when I was launching the company.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that you have the individual relationships with different charities, because I agree that it can be very cumbersome when you're looking through a long list of people to donate to, and you don't know how they're using the money and whether you don't want to make the wrong decision and give to the wrong people. And so it's great if Good World Games can become an authority on, if Good World Games establishes some amount of credibility that, they pick good charities. If you're playing a Good World Games game, it's benefiting a charity that you can trust. And so I think that's really, I like that you are careful about who you select and you develop the game with those people in mind. And Flow of Water, or Water Flow, is very fun. Right. What is it? Water Flow?
Water Flow.
Water Flow, yeah.
With a W, yeah.
Yeah. ATER.
You're right. It's our intention is maybe to become a little bit of I wouldn't say filter, but certainly a standard of charities that can be trusted. Charities that we feel are doing a great job. I think there's a lot further to go, and we would love in our gameplay for the connection and the results to be even more tangible and transparent than even today. We're taking baby steps, but I think where I would like to see it go is that people can see specific items that nonprofits need being funded through gameplay. Right? You need a satellite tag for shark research. You can help fund that. Right? You need to, support workers in the field and wherever it might be. You can help fund that. Walkie-talkies. A car, an ambulance. I would love to see, the connection between giving through games and the direct impact, the direct results in the real world.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to measure too the difference in how much people give, because it does seem like it would be a lot easier to give if you're paying $2.99 for a shovel versus $2.99 for someone that's going to give more money to someone else and eventually gets to Columbia. So
right.
Yeah,
or a
that's
Starbucks coffee, right?
Yeah.
We think so, and that's part of our model. That's part of our belief, to be proven as part of the thesis that all else being equal, meaning our games are as fun as, or hopefully funner than Candy Crush, but as fun as other games out there, that people will want to play more and spend more in our games, at least even incrementally, because they're doing good. That's part of the hypothesis. So we'll see if it gets proven.
So right now you have 4 games on gaming games.
Yeah.
For
4
good?
games.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are your expansion plans? Do you see this turning into 30 games, or are you just looking to really develop those 4 and maybe very slowly add on a 5th and a 6th?
Yeah, it's another good question, because there are many different directions you can go in gaming. Like a lot of things, you could really be specialized and very focused on one or a very small number of titles. And some game companies do take that approach. You have to be careful a little bit in the casual gaming space because it is a hit-based industry. It changes a little bit when you get into mid-core and harder core titles that people may tend to play for years in some cases, right? I was talking to somebody about Minecraft just earlier, and there you go. There's a title that, has been played for years by lots of kids, and not just kids, right? And so it's engaging for a very long time. But a lot of developers do take, they make a choice to some extent, focus on a few number of titles or really do a volume play, right? And we've altered or thought about both directions. Our model, where we're heading now is to produce more games with partners that we consider high quality partners. Ours is really a partnership model, so that's one thing just to point out, is that we don't spend money on paid installs. We don't buy users. Like most game companies use ad networks to buy users. We don't do that. We partner not just with charities, but with other apps and organizations that have a big footprint. So a lot of users, and we share revenue. So ours is a revenue sharing distribution model of gaming, which is a little unusual. It's not unheard of, but we've taken that approach because partly because of the charity connection. So the charities themselves do promote the games. We get celebrities on board. We get other brand partners on board involved in our games that will actually promote the games through their consumer channels, through social media. But it's revenue share and partnerships for us. And I don't know if there's a right path in terms of focusing on a few number of games, or a wrong path. A lot of game companies just keep having to introduce new games to keep their user bases growing.
So speaking of your user base, who is your user base? Who are the people that spend money on in-game, in-app purchases?
Yeah, I'd love to know that. I'd start by saying that our games tend to appeal. They appeal to a wide audience, but probably a demographic between 13 and maybe 34, 35 years old. They may skew a little bit more female currently than they do male, but it's pretty balanced. It's a relatively small percentage of users that spend money in games, as many of you may know. It's a few percent, if you're lucky, of your total user base that actually convert to paid. And even within that few percent, 2 or 3 or 4% of users, you've got your whales, right? Like in many industries that you obviously want to attract and engage and have them and retain. You want them to come back and play and spend. So the same applies to us. It's it's a very relatively small set of users that account for a disproportionate amount of the revenue. And I think what we're going to see with some of the partnerships, we've signed an agreement with an interesting company in the UK called Debut, which isn't a charity, but they have a very interesting model in the recruitment space. And we're producing a suite of games on an ongoing basis with them. They're very targeted to millennials. So their model is all about millennial recruitment. So our games will have to appeal to that audience very much.
So millennials play the game, and then if they do a good job, they get hired?
That could be one outcome if they're lucky, yes. They we'll be producing games with some pretty big global brands that will use the games for branding purposes and in part recruitment purposes. So you may have to crack a code in order to get hired by whomever we might be making a game for, and some of the other games just may be fun, kind of exciting colorful titles that the brands are just using to make them look maybe a little hipper than they are, or than the perception might be.
Did anyone in the audience have any questions for Gregory? If so, you can, we're getting toward the end, so if you guys wanted to, raise your hand at any point. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, thanks for taking the time out and sharing some of these lessons with us. My question was that with all this crowdfunding platforms that are popping up, have you guys thought of maybe partnering the social cause, which is charity giving, towards the crowdfunding applications?
Do you mean partnering with a crowdfunding platform, or
in terms of partnerships, like you're saying, you're partnered with specific charities. And if I understood correctly, on the good games portion, you're going to develop a certain game, and then part of the proceeds go to the charity. So similarly, when you have an opportunity, I was curious, like, have you guys thought about it or considered partnering with crowdfunding platforms and creating a partnership where the people who are creating the app or the widget or the game could also then contribute to the selected charity? It'll expand your user base tremendously.
Absolutely. So there's maybe two sides to that, and one on the first question.
Yeah.
So for those of you who may not have heard the question was, have we considered partnering with crowdfunding platforms to allow users direct funds through our games to specific causes? The answer is that we actually did partner with a crowdfunding platform. One was crowdrise.org, which is a fundraising platform, right? But they reach millions of users, and they support probably close to 2 million charities now, I think it must be at. So we did experiment with that, and that is a natural fit for our type of business. It is, and we probably need to explore that more and evolve it more. I think we will head down that path because it makes a lot of sense, and it goes back to what I was saying with respect to tangible and direct, transparent results. So if you're playing a game, and you can see, sort of a barometer in your side menu showing how you're contributing to a specific item that the charity needs, a charity that you feel passionate about, that makes you more excited, right? And if you see the aggregate of users playing the game, your total contributions, right, as a player community, that's really cool. We want to move towards that eventually. But yeah, good question. Thank you.
You guys also have the option in the app to share when you donate, right? So that people can, both tell their friends about the game itself and kind of brag that they're donating and feel good about themselves in front of their friends. So I think that's also
you won't feel as embarrassed telling your friends on Facebook that you're playing our games, right?
You want to play Farmville with me? Yeah, no, that's,
and yet people still get bombarded with that. But yes, you can share in all of our games, Facebook, Twitter sometimes. So that's also part of the business. It's the comfort and almost the pride of playing and supporting a cause.
And are you equally focused on the brand Good World Games as you are with the individual brands of the apps, or how do you balance that?
So building Good World Games as a brand versus the individual games. Yeah, that's another very good question, Madison. Thank you.
I paid him to say that.
He's paid me to say that. Yeah, he made a lot of money. It is a balancing act. Good World Games is a little bit of, I'll say, in today's day and age, is a little bit of an old-fashioned style name, right? It's not it's not a name like Uber or Airbnb. I kind of like it for that reason, and to me, it has fairly strong branding capability, if I can put it that way. So I am interested in building Good World Games as a brand to stand for gaming for good, but time will tell. To some extent, you have to. Users, gamers, tend not to associate. This may be a a big generalization, but associate with the companies behind the games as much as they do the games themselves. They have real connection with the games themselves, like, again, Minecraft or Candy Crush. Not many people know it's King behind Candy Crush, right? And so I have to be realistic also. People may choose to disregard Goodwill Games as a brand, even though I may think it's a strong brand, and they may connect with Waterflow, right, or Music for Good, or because they like the genre and they like the cause it's supporting, and I'm okay with that. I'll push that as much as possible, and that may be the reality, and usually it is in gaming.
And do you advertise if you play Waterflow, for example, do people find out about the other games through the course of playing Waterflow? Yes.
So cross-promoting the games is very much part of the game. You have to alert people. You have to do it in a sort of a delicate way, because users, we have so many apps, that are pushed in our faces these days, and then push notifications from within those apps. You got to be careful not to be abusive, but we try to do it like every app developer in a sensible way that isn't doesn't
too annoying,
doesn't annoy users too much. So we cross promote. We do send push notifications, but usually it has to have a purpose, right? It has to serve the user at the end of the day.
And Faye, I think you had a question. Yeah.
So thank you for coming here. All the topics you covered were very interesting. I just have a question regarding your input on marrying product and giving. What would be your biggest advice if someone wants to start something similar to that, working with non-for-profit organizations?
Are you working with a nonprofit or for a nonprofit currently?
No, I just
Are you
have
thinking?
an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great question, and it's something that has...
Just repeat it a little bit.
Yeah, so, the question was, would I have advice for somebody considering marrying a product with giving, right? Similar to what we're doing, but maybe not in gaming. It's a sort of thing that's plagued me a lot in a way, because, and my advice, I'll say this right away, is to choose a really good, or choose a nonprofit partner that you're comfortable with and that you feel is really going to serve your product well and get the job done. We've worked with a variety of different nonprofits, and making sure the fit is right, not just with our games, but with the objective that we have, which is that the nonprofits market the games, is challenging. It's tough. And there's a lot of great people working in nonprofits, and a lot of people that have great intentions. But in gaming, I can speak about gaming, we have a lot of nonprofits that approach us to make games, to partner with them, and that's great. We don't have too much trouble attracting nonprofits, but it doesn't mean that the nonprofit is equipped or well suited to promoting our games or really getting behind it as much as they may love the idea. So with your own product, whatever that might be, just think carefully and how can I put this, sort of interview the nonprofit that you're looking to partner with.
Just a follow-up question to that. What about if it's a Tom's scenario,
Okay.
where you are being the non-for-profit organization and the company who's making the product? Because
Okay.
the story with Tom's,
Yeah.
they're their own charity.
Yes. So then it's blended. Yeah, that may be a different scenario, and Tom's is great, right? It's simple model. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Tom isn't a not-for-profit. It's just a charity arm of it that's giving money.
Right.
You buy the
Giving a pair of
product,
shoes.
it goes
Yeah.
to the charity, and then they donate a pair of shoes to the impoverished.
That's right. They give one pair for every pair bought. Right, exactly.
So the point was just that it's not, Tom's isn't actually a not-for-profit, it just has a charitable arm.
It's a company that's...
It's a company that's giving that exactly. That's right. That has philanthropy built into their business model, really, which is a bit different. So if you're if you're, kind of controlling both the product and the giving, that's a different scenario than what we face. Ours is a partnership situation. And so in that case, if you're thinking about that type of model, right, a one-for-one type of model or something similar, it can work really well. Make it simple. Tom's wins because it's very simple. They're not necessarily the first that came up with the idea, but they sold it very well, right? They made it super simple. Everyone could get it. It wasn't difficult to understand. It still does come back to that KISS principle, a lot of things, right? You just keep it simple. Don't complicate it for people. Explain it. Well, you shouldn't have to explain it multiple times, I'd say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, one more question.
So you mentioned gaming and you're new to it. Could you speak a little bit to future state where you see maybe augmented reality or virtual reality? You mentioned you're in casual gaming, but how is that going to impact what you see down the road?
Yeah, so the question was how we're in casual gaming, but the gentleman's asking how we might see augmented reality, virtual reality impacting gaming down the road. And that's a big question, right? And it's a very interesting question. And I may not even be, sort of specialized enough to answer properly, but it's something that is very much on our radar. It's coming fast and furious. I was talking to some people earlier about that tonight as well. It's a whole nother domain than what we're doing. Ours are casual social games. There's no doubt, though, that it's caught on. Oculus Rifts. Now conferences, events, focus purely on that. It's going to be pretty exciting. A lot of people are going to chase it. I think it's going to become competitive very quickly, would be my assessment. So you better have the skills in-house to be able to tackle it. It's not our focus right now, but who knows? It could come into our wheelhouse at some point. We'll see. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Gregory's going to be here for questions. If you guys want to ask him any more follow-up questions. Thanks, you guys have been a great audience. And thank you, Gregory. That was very interesting and really, really a pleasure. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.